Hello and welcome back everyone to PKIdeas for another tournament reflections video. This time it is round number 8 of the City of Adelaide Open. In this round I was versing a player named Ian Mitchell. So let's get on with the game. The game started off with the first move d4 followed by knight to f6, knight to f3, and he played b6. Now b6 is quite an interesting move. Haven't seen that one before straight away. I've seen c5 played straight away, like so, and then b6, but never b6 as the first move. So in this position, I play bishop to f4. Now you should know what this opening is. I played it in the last game against Kyle Lever as well. The opening is the London system. The whole idea of it is that you play e3, h3 and play bishop to h2, creating a defensive position for the bishop where you can look at this diagonal for the whole game. With that being said, bishop to b7, he fianchettos his bishop. I play h3, e6, e3, and now d5. In this position, I don't really like black's position. And the reason is that this bishop on b7 is a bit misplaced, that it is behind one of his own pawns. So if we just look at the bishop only has 1, 2, 3 squares to go to and in the next move. So he hasn't necessarily placed his bishop on the best square, but the way that it could turn out to be good for him is if he managed just to swap off this pawn on d5 with my pawn on c2. So if I had played something like pawn to c4, then the position would be better for him. So here what Engine suggests me doing is exactly that, playing a c4, but in terms of strategy and the types of positions that I like to play, c3 was a much better choice. So after he played d5, I played bishop to d3 first, just to make sure that I got that bishop out early, bishop to d6, and now I played knight to e5. Knight to e5 isn't necessarily a good move. I just wanted to play it to see what he would do against the position. Engine points out that it's negative 0.14, so really minimal. It does create a bit of a problem with double pawns either on the f file or the e file. So he, in this position, if he had played something like knight to d7, and which he actually played in the game, and I played something like knight back, then bishop takes, pawn takes, and I've got double pawns here. Or I played something else, then bishop takes, pawn takes, and I have got double pawns over on the e file. So none of those choices were good for me, but I played it anyways. And now after knight to f3, after knight b to d7, I played knight to d2. And then he played knight to e4. He's trying to create symmetry over here. He's also planning to play something like f6, but I do have evil things like queen to h5 coming up. That was the main reason why I also moved the knight away, so that I could get my queen out early. So after knight to e4, I played castles, and he castled. And now I could afford to play f3. And the reason why I could afford to play f3 is because I've got a dark squared bishop covering all these squares over here. So it's not necessarily a danger in this position for me. So after f3, he decided to do knight takes d2, queen takes d2. Now in this game, we have reached sort of the middle game because we've developed all our pieces. My rooks are connected over in the first rank, but his rooks aren't connected. But he is close to finishing his own development as well. Now the main idea that I have to think about is to understand where to attack in this position. Now clearly my two bishops are on the king side attacking, my knight is on the king side attacking, and I have one rook on the king side. So if we look at how many pieces there are of mine attacking the king side, we can have a look at 1, 2, 3, 4 so far, and now nearly 5. And if we look at how many defenders there are in this position for him, he's only got 1 defender. So 5 against 1, that is clearly more than 2 attackers and defenders, meaning that an attack, if it is well coordinated over on the king side, has a high chance of working. So after queen takes d2, he played f5. like so. And what this does is that it blocks the bishop from attacking the h7 square. So it's effectively removing one defender. But be warned, when you play a move like this, you're also creating more weaknesses. Notice that this pawn on e6 is a major weakness. So if I was to say open up on the e file, then that pawn would be mincemeat. So after f5, I played bishop to g5, and the reason is I wanted to get out of the pin, and I didn't want to be having double pawns in this position. That completely compromises my attack and my position. So bishop to g5. If he does queen takes g5, then knight takes, and if he has something like this, then I can easily push the pawn forward, and he doesn't necessarily have an attack anymore. His rook is attacked, and rook f3, queen f2, and rook g3 is coming as well. So after bishop to g5, he played bishop to e7. Now, I was pretty much happy to swap the bishops off over here because I get an extra tempo. And now I play f4. The reasoning behind it is that I want to get my rook out over here. And now knight takes e5 is played. Now after knight takes e5, the main decision that I have to make is to either take with this pawn or with the f pawn. And in this position, what I did was I took with the f pawn. The reason is that I want to keep my center in a stable structure, and I also want to attack on the king side. So I have to open up this file over here. So currently it's a semi-open file because his pawn is still on f5, but other than that, I've got enough piece activity in this position to create an attack over on the h7 and g7 pawns, and eventually the king. So after f takes e5, c5, after c3, I'm holding the position. After a5, what he played, I played queen to e2. The reason why I play queen to e2 is that I don't want him to play bishop to a6. If he plays bishop to a6, I'm pretty much forced to take his bishop on a6, because if I move the bishop away, my rook on f1 is as good as gone. So after move number 17, queen to e2, he played queen to f7. He wanted to stop me from coming to h5. After queen to f7, I played rook to f2, and then he played a4. I played a3, stopping his pawns right there. I don't want him to move any more forward, because the more space that you give over on the opposite side that you're attacking, if by any chance that all your pieces swap off on the attacking side, that means that he has extra space and an advantage on the non-attacking side. So his idea was correct in this position, but maybe, in my opinion, he could have tried to consolidate a bit more, played something like g6 and queen g7. Creating a pawn chain like this is quite important here, because his bishop is a light squared bishop, and his pawns are pretty much stopping the bishop from being active. So he might as well play a defensive role in this position and guard all the weaknesses that black has. So after I played a3, then he played pawn push, bishop to c2. My bishop is still on this diagonal, with my hopes of playing something like g4, as the computer pointed out. Swap these things off and attack the h7 pawn. After bishop to c2, then he played b5, and now his bishop is as good as a pawn. It is physically impossible for the bishop to become active over on the queen side, so it has to maneuver all the way over here towards the king side. So after b5, rook a to f1, I'm bringing in all my pieces to the attack. Queen to e7. After queen to e7, I played queen to h5, bishop to c6, so he's planning to bring his bishop out. Notice here my plan was to play something like g4, but if I play g4, that's a colossal blunder, because bishop to e8 actually wins the queen. So can't play g4 in this position. So after bishop to c6, I played king to h2. The reason why I play king to h2 is because I don't want any checks coming down over on the f file, say if I was to open up. So I played king to h2, After king to h2, rook to a7. Rook to a7 is an okay move. Don't really rate it that much, but the idea is quite simple. A rook and queen battery on g7 and eventually h7. After rook to a7, I played queen to f3, and this pretty much puts a threat on the rook on f8. And the idea is pretty simple, as the computer points out. Pawn push takes, queen takes rook, queen takes queen, and bishop takes h7. And then I am happy to tell you that is exactly what happened. So simple tactics always win games. So after queen to f3, he played rook 7 to a8, and I played g4. g4 completely puts the pressure on him to make a move. In this position, g6 would have been the best move, and after which g takes and g takes, and now his king is completely open for my attacks. If he does e takes, then I've got a pass pawn which he has to worry about the whole game. So g6 did not happen, and instead he fell completely into the simple tactic f takes g4, and almost immediately I did queen takes f8, rook takes f8, and now rook takes f8, queen takes f8, bishop takes pawn, and now this is a pretty simple tactic. If the king takes the bishop, rook takes queen, and if the king moves over here, then rook takes queen as well. In the end, he's going to lose the queen, and in the end, the position is going to be better for me because he has this useless bishop which is stuck on this position. As long as my rook remains on the back rank after takes, as long as my rook remains on the back rank, this bishop will never ever get out of this position. So I can eventually bring my king over and take this bishop on c6 as well. So with that being said, over at this position after bishop takes h7, Ian actually resigned. So there was nothing in this position that he could do, and the game was as good as gone. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Something to take back from this game is the sides that which you attack and how you decide on which side to attack. Usually when you're attacking, you attack on the side where you have the most pieces attacking, as well as your opponent having the least pieces defending. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, got a little bit of insight into what actually goes on in my head when it comes to attacking and comes to tactics and checkmates. If you have any comments, please don't forget to write them down below. If I missed something in this analysis which you think is important or which you don't understand, please don't be afraid to write that in the comments as well. I'll be happy to answer them all. So with that being said, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time for the next video, the last round of the City of Adelaide and how I managed to snag a win. Yeah.